view where you're standing. Your way to another land.
Sweetest welcome from the Father, gathered up and carried home. We are past this time for waiting. Come, let us bow before your throne.
We will meet in the golden city, in the new Jerusalem. All our pain and all our tears will be no more. We will stand with the hosts of heaven and cry, holy is the Lamb. We will worship and adore you evermore. Never can the powers of darkness, neither death nor even life, let nothing ever separate us from the holy love of God. We will meet in the golden city, Jerusalem. All our pain and all our tears will be no more. We will stand with the hosts of heaven and cry, holy is the Lamb. We will worship and adore you evermore. We will meet in the golden city, in the new Jerusalem. All our pain and all our tears will be no more. We will stand with the hosts of heaven and cry, holy is the Lamb. We will worship and adore you evermore.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. I want to thank you for joining us today here at a little Sabbath Fellowship. We just chilling.
Yeah.
We're just Shabbating today. We got some nap time available. Levi's taking a little nap, so we thought we want to interact with everybody and say hey, encourage everyone, see how everyone's doing. And what do you think? Do you want to drop a link so people can call in?
Yeah, we could do that. I don't think we've ever done that for a Sabbath fellowship.
All right. Thanks for everyone that's watching on LiiightHouse and on YouTube. So the call-in link I'm putting there in the live chat on both platforms. If you want to call in, that's the link to do so. Be sure to be ready to be on camera. So have your camera on. Be clothed and ready to talk.
Yeah, that song definitely always makes me teary-eyed. I was a little teary-eyed before we started because we came up here to our office to start our broadcast and realized this will be the first time, I think, ever. Yeah, because he's been around the whole time. This will be the first time we do a show where our dog Jonah isn't. Normally at the end of the shows, he would hear us saying goodbye to you guys. And he knew, I don't know if it was the tone in our voice or he understands English, but he would hear us saying, our goodbyes, and he would all of a sudden come into the office and start, putting his muzzle on us and get all excited that we were going to be done with whatever we were doing, because he seemed to understand to stay out of the room while we were doing our shows. So he would always come in right at the end. And so I had a little bit of a moment right before the show where I realized, oh, he's not going to come in at the end of the show today. So,
Yeah, he passed. He's no longer with us.
yeah, it was a hard Shabbat last week.
I didn't get this set up. 1 second.
I don't think we have any updates, do we?
Not really.
Levi's almost walking. He's been standing up on his own the last couple of days. So,
Yeah, just standing up like no problem.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to start taking steps pretty soon.
yeah. He's taken a couple of like almost half steps where I'm like, oh, he's about to. And then he topples over. So it's been super fun watching his progression, his growth. It's going so fast.
All right. So we have a question in the live chat from Shirako. He's asking 1 Corinthians 15:56. What does it mean that the strength of the sin is the law? All right, so let's look at 15:56 real quick. Actually, let me adjust this. Let's start 54. When the perishable have been clothed with the imperishable and the immortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come to pass. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. Rocco, this is Paul that's writing this. Me personally, I think he's actually alluding to what he was talking about in Romans chapter, 7? So we'll start in verse 7. It says, what then shall we say? Is the law sin? Certainly not. Indeed, I would not have been mindful of sin if not for the law, for I would have been aware of coveting. I would not have been aware of coveting if the law had not said, do not covet. But sin, seizing its opportunity through the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Once I was alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came in, sin sprang to life and I died. So I discovered that the very commandment that was meant to bring life actually brought death. For sin, seizing its opportunity through the commandment, deceived me, and through the commandment put me to death. But then he tags on, so then the law is holy, commandment is holy, righteous, and good. Because just in case you thought he was saying somehow the law was bad,
Right.
and that we should be lawless, he's not saying that at all. He's just explaining this. It's kind of like him just midrashing. Really, he's just kind of like going over in a very unique way of writing. This is why I say, Paul is not for beginners, but in a unique way of writing, he's explaining the idea that sin, because once you start sinning, then then you're under the law of punishment, and if you don't have atonement, right? So he's going into this idea that the very law that was meant to bring life actually brought death. So this is the statement that Shrako, I would ask you to consider. Remember in Deuteronomy, it's the laws that Yahweh is espousing to the people. He says, these are for your life. Choose life. He tells them, choose life. Do my commandments and choose life. But sin wants you to do the opposite of the commandment, right? So he's kind of metaphorically speaking here, as if sin is an actual person, a little bit of anthropomorphic language, as if sin is a person that's trying to seize through the opportunity of the commandment that gets you to break the commandment and therefore cause you to receive punishment of death. And so the law is meant for life. Breaking the law results in punishment, most times even death. What's up, Leslie?
Just isn't there similar language in Genesis when God is talking to Cain about sin is crouching at the door?
In the Masoretic,
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, so Paul could be hearkening back to that kind of figurative speech because it's all the way back in Genesis. It's sin is kind of spoken of in that similar way.
Yeah, sin's crouching at the door, desiring that you must master it. So yeah, it's that's why he was saying in Romans or 1 Corinthians 15, as he's talking about the moment where we reach the resurrection and we no longer are subject to sin because we've been given his laws and heart. His laws and his ways are put on our hearts and minds to obey them forever. We're then called incorruptible or immortal because we will not be able to sin and suffer the sting of death. So this is why he's kind of getting at the sting of death is what happens as a result of sin, and the power of sin is the law. As he tried to explain in Romans chapter 7 through 12 or whatever. So hopefully that's a decent answer for you, brother.
You said you put the call-in link in the chat.
Yeah, I'll put it in there again. But some people may be chilling at the house. They may not want to call in.
Oh, yeah, I just didn't know where actually it was to direct people.
I didn't pin it, so give me a second here. And I'll try to pin it. All right, guys, hit that thumbs up. Go over to LiiightHouse and subscribe to us. We're on LiiightHouse streaming live right now. Drop us a hello if you came to visit us over at the live stream. It's actually in the video description below. The link to the LiiightHouse live stream. Drop a little hello in the chat over there. Tell us you've stopped by. Country Dad's asking, what are my thoughts from yesterday? Well, it was an interesting Friday. It was an interesting end of the work week.
It was a good day yesterday. We had a great Friday.
I'm actually going to do a review, Country Dad, on my discussion with Solberg. And, like when I was doing the Brave Believer, I was doing review videos, and I would I had a different setup in my office, had a green screen, so I could use a different type of software. And I was able to put running totals on the screen of different things,
Yeah.
When I was reviewing videos. I wish I had that so that I could do a running total of how many times he just completely wasn't listening to what I was saying. And it felt like I felt like I wasn't. It was exactly like I joked with Michael Temperato when he called in 2 nights ago. And I was saying, you've heard me try to have these discussions with people where I will say the dog went to the store, and then they get mad and say, how dare you say the cat got in his car and drove to the moon? They're not even listening to what I'm saying.
Well, what's frustrating for me watching things like that is when a direct question is asked and there's a blank stare for a moment because there's a gear that switches and the person almost for a second realizes that one question, if they could just answer that honestly, would, put a nail in the coffin of whatever their doctrine is. And they do everything they can to never answer the question. And I get frustrated being like, wait, don't let him ask him again. Make him answer that question.
Lindsay liked when I asked him the question. So if Christ was high priest, if all the atonement work was done on the cross at his death, then why did he become high priest?
Yeah.
She wanted me to press him on that question. And that was the moment when he diverted into the Trinity discussion.
Yeah, he completely skipped right past that question. And that is the pivotal question of that debate. Full disclosure, guys, when I was watching the debate, the discussion the first time around, I thought Sean was being a little too, aggressive, hostile when he was saying, are you trolling me right now? I was like, why are you saying that to him? We're talking about it afterwards. I don't watch a whole lot of other channels on YouTube. So I didn't know that this guy has supposed credentials and his actual Bible professor, and he has had another conversation with Sean where they talked about certain things. I saw them talk about certain things, and then it seemed like he was kind of playing dumb. Like he, all this stuff was so just news to him that Sean believes this or that. And I kind of started to understand why Sean was mentioning trolling, because I mean, if you're a Bible professor, I feel like you should be absolutely confident in your understandings of whatever doctrines you're teaching to people. And if you're not even confident enough to say, yes, I believe once we're saved, we're always saved, or yes, I'm a Calvinist, I believe that babies deserve to be on the cross. Like, if you can't just confidently at least stand behind your beliefs and say, this is what I believe, then I'm not sure why you're a professor at a Bible college. Like, what, if you're not confident in what you're teaching. But then at the same time, these people are so confident in what they teach that they are happy to say that Sean's completely wrong and he's teaching dangerous heresies. And, certain things for them are a mystery. If they can't answer a question, it's a mystery. And it's okay that there's a bunch of different interpretations. But Sean's interpretation isn't okay. That's where we know that's wrong. No, that's not wrong. So definitely in hindsight, thinking about it, I think Sean actually maintained his composure. Because he seemed to be kind of playing a little coy and playing dumb when there are things that seems like I thought he had whole conversations with Sean about it the last time he was on. So just interesting. Interesting how that seems to be the similar dynamic in most of these conversations, unfortunately. What's funny is the one person I thought was going to be a crazy contentious conversation was one of the best you've ever had. It's who's the guy?
Charles.
Yes. What's his channel name?
The Layman's Seminary.
I was shocked at how peaceful and wonderful that conversation was. That's what I would like to see.
Well, he wasn't trying to debate me. He was trying to hear me out because he's studying me for our next debate.
But that's the beauty, though, is that he was able to actually have a conversation with you without trying to debate you. And all these other guys turn it into...
And that's how generous I am. I'll literally have my debate opponents on and give them all my notes if they just would take the time to listen.
But that I feel like was the kind of conversation that two people who disagree on doctrine should be having, where it doesn't become this weird, awkward, tense thing where that other person eventually devolves into calling my husband a cult leader.
From the biggest cult ever.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest irony, is the Trinitarians are the biggest cult.
It's funny. I was watching a breakdown from this guy that was trained with the Mexican government as far as federal police.
Yeah.
Who's been interviewed by some YouTubers and stuff. And I was just watching some of the videos. He was talking about how embedded the occult is into Mexican way of life and the Mexican government. Definitely the cartels.
Yeah.
But he was going over concepts, even in the government training he went through for his position. He realizing there was occult practices that they were teaching them. And I'm guessing this guy's a believer. I didn't hear him say this at any point, but from his knowledge of things, it seemed like he knew he was a believer. But it was interesting because that's like he was talking about how the death cult hides itself within Catholicism in Mexico.
Yeah.
And they'll have the statue of Mary, and behind it will be a specific concept where there's wings coming out with black tips. He goes, that's the wings of this specific god who's the god of war. That's part of the death cult.
Wow.
And he goes through the history of like how they hid it specifically in the Catholic iconography so that the people would receive the Catholicism easier. Wow. And the host was baffled, right? Because he doesn't understand what he's listening to. But that's what it's universalism. I mean, just recently the Pope came out and was talking about all religions are a pathway to God.
Yeah.
Right. And he's getting serious flack for that. Not realizing they're just pulling back the veneer on what they've always taught and always thought. So whenever we see this common concept of a philosophical Godhead of triune essence that is held by other pagan religions being brought in through the philosophers from other regions through the Romans and Greek thought into a Catholic setting over time and forced its way through the Roman sword into the professions of Christianity, why are we surprised that the enemy is trying to infiltrate the faith? Like, why are we surprised by that?
The craziest thing is, like I was talking to you about earlier, how many modern Christians will talk about the Hellenization of the Jews at the time of Jesus,
Right.
not realizing the complete irony that Christianity never got away from that Hellenization. Like, it continued in the path of more and more of the world influencing Christian thought, Christian doctrine, Christian philosophy. And to where now we're at this point, with doctrines of accommodation, people don't want to rock the boat. People are embarrassed by things that are blatantly written in the Bible and want to explain them away, and it's all rooted in this idea of the Greek thought and Roman thought, but the Greeks weren't all that different from the Romans. So, but it's just interesting that people, they have an awareness of the Hellenization of that time and how there was this influence on the Jews to try and get them to bring more of these worldly things into their religion. And yet they're guilty of the exact same thing, or allowing the same thing to happen to their religion over the last however many generations.
I don't know who asked this question. I can't find it again, but someone was asking, why is Jesus called the Son of Man? Also, why Ezekiel? I'm trying to find your question. So yeah, I don't know if you erased it or whatnot, but essentially it's a term for the Son of Man is a term given to prophets. And so we see Enoch is called that, Ezekiel's called that.
Daniel called that?
I think Daniel is also called that, and then Christ, of course. But we also have this idea here where Christ, John the Baptist is actually asking Christ's disciples in John 1 about this idea. And so this is in verse 25. The Pharisees who had been sent asked him, why then do you baptize if you're not the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophets? So this is a term where Christ, I'm just kind of pointing out this term as I answer this question. John the Baptist's disciples asked him, are you the one that we are expected? Are you the prophet? You see, they're using this term in the same way they ask, are you Elijah? Are you the prophet? But it's capital P because they're putting extra emphasis on this, because that was the emphasis that they were asking him with, which are you the prophet that was supposed to come before the day of the Lord? So this is why they were, the Son of Man is another term that was given to prophets, and seemingly famous prophets, like really powerful, important prophets, you know what I mean? And so this is kind of just like this term, the Messiah, the anointed one, the Mashiach. Remember, Christ is not Yeshua's last name. It just means the Messiah, anointed one. Elijah, they're obviously the prophecy about him returning for the day of the Lord. Christ explains that as far as how that it was embodied in John the Baptist. And then the prophet itself is a term that's used just like the Son of Man. So I'm pretty sure in Matthew 24 or Mark 13, Christ uses the term Son of Man of himself.
You see the Son of Man
Yeah.
coming on the clouds.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully that helps you.
Isn't there controversy about Enoch being called Son of Man in the book of Enoch?
It depends on, I mean, that's just from certain YouTubers, certain scholars certain scholars don't like the fact that he's called the Son of Man. They think it's calling him the Messiah. Yeah.
Do they ever address Ezekiel or Daniel or?
I don't know.
Because that's always my thought when I hear that argument.
That's not entirely the reasoning I've heard of why they think he's the Messiah or why they take issue with 1 Enoch 71 in the translations.
Yeah, I know there's more to it, and that they completely ignore the context of the whole entire book leading up to that point.
Yeah, and before and after it, and everything about it, like it's crazy. It's like that conversation I had yesterday. I'm just gonna ignore everything that's being said and just try to focus on one little aspect and take that out of context. Sunny Day, if you want to clarify which passage and that you're talking about, but if you're talking about Revelation chapter 5 or 4, I mean, that's the Almighty's throne, the Father's throne. And so the high.
And what part of the Old Testament are you referring to with the throne? referring to the high priest. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Sunny Day, if you just want to go ahead and clarify your question, try to make it as clear as possible. We'll give you a clear answer. Yochanan and Robert, welcome. Thanks for saying hello in the live stream at LiiightHouse. Did I tell you that they're doing a whole new UI for LiiightHouse?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm your wife. I live with you. Yeah, you told me that. That's major news. Looks like we might just have questions today, babe.
Kyle is asking, how would you handle the situation of being on an island in Hawaii with no one to really connect with on the same spiritual path as you, deciding to move or try to build community here? I'm guessing he's already in Hawaii. Brother, thankfully we have the internet today. I know it's virtual. I know it's not the same, but we understand there's lots of people in different places, even landlocked places, that don't have community because of the region they're in, because they've tried to go to traditional churches and ask questions and they get kicked out. You know what I mean? So like, we understand it can be tough. So I would just pray the Father gives you wisdom as far as whether you truly need to move and uproot your life or you need to stay there, and possibly, who knows, over time, I'm not going to say it's going to be immediate, but over time you evangelize those around you. You build your community literally by evangelizing those around you with the truth that help them understand the scriptures and the fullness thereof. I'm guessing, I'm not sure, Kyle, how long you've watched us, or if you call what we teach community, if that's your use of that word, but that's one way to do it if you don't have to actually move. But I know it can be tough, brother. So
I can just say we're in a similar situation, even though we're not on an island. We're basically on an island in the sense of, as far as we know, there's no one in our town who shares the same beliefs as us. So, I mean, the way we handle it is we created fellowship online. This is what works for us. We've talked about possibly checking out some Sunday churches just to have Christian community. And for us, it's actually more about Levi and building a family and a community around the family than anything else at this point, because all of our families live in all different states. I mean, if we wanted to move to a state with family, there's like 4 different states to choose from, and it's not all the family, everyone's pretty fragmented. So the choice really comes down to creating our own kind of community, spiritual family here where we are. We started talking about the logistics of checking out Sunday churches right now and realized it's not really realistic for us with a 10-month-old, because I'm not going to leave him in a daycare with people that I don't know and I've never met, and other children I don't know. Like I'm just not comfortable with that. And then we know sitting through a service is not going to be, probably won't be possible at this point, because he's not ready to be sitting down for 45 minutes at a time. So we realized, we might need to wait a little while, but we're open to checking out Sunday churches for the fellowship. We know that's controversial in this crowd, but for us, you guys know how we feel about our brethren in the churches.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to fellowship with other believers who don't share all the same specific, doctrinal ideas as I do. I mean, to me, that would be, you've then become a problem at that point, right? If you can't communicate with other people in the faith, or even people outside of the faith, with love and decency, and show them the love of Christ and walk in that patience. And, I'm saying, I heard a statement many years ago that I think a lot of folks in the Torah communities could benefit from. And it was from a lady. She was disciplining her son. Her son was like 8 or 9 years old. And it was at this church function. And she said to her son, "Hey, I need you to sit here. I need you to say, sit next to me and stop talking. People don't need to know everything that you know." That's what she told her son, right?
Yeah.
And that's the truth, guys. That message applies to adults as well, right? And we come to a new knowledge of understanding the fullness of Scripture applies to us. The commandments are relevant to our lives. It is how we walk as Christ walked. It is how we disciple. It is the truth and embodiment of wisdom and knowledge, as Paul says. And it's wonderful, and we're blessed by it, and we get excited over it, right? not everybody's ready for that same type of excitement. In the same way that we're supposed to mourn with those who mourn, we're not going to take that zeal and excitement into a funeral procession and start, getting all excited and explaining stuff when everyone's trying to mourn, right? So we have to have some situational awareness, right? You have to read the room and just meet people where they're at. That old saying, people don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So that can all apply to our walks, so that even if we're fellowshipping with someone that doesn't understand these things, that still is trapped in this bad mindset of conflicting and contradictory theologies, because they've never truly been taught good sound doctrine and never been walked through the scriptures. The only way that they're going to have exposure to something like that is if we build those bridges and we treat them with love the way we want to be treated. And so that might mean the first 20 times you're with them, you don't tell them what you know.
Yeah, I have had more secular friends come around to wanting to learn about Jesus and the Bible through me not preaching to them, not going and telling them to repent, the kingdom is at hand, or anything like that. Just living my life as a Christian, living according to, my beliefs as to what that entails, and not doing my best to not alienate them when they try to talk to me about it or disagree with me about it. So for me, in my experience, it's been that the less I said to somebody about my beliefs, the more impact it had, because they were of the opinion that all Christians just want to shove their Bible down your throat, and that's, sometimes that perception is correct. I would also say, I think a lot of us idealize the idea of having a beautiful utopian Torah observant community where all of us believe in keeping the commandments. But I think a lot of us forget that it still involves humans. So a lot of our friends that we have in areas where there are very high numbers of other Torah observant people, a lot of them struggle with the same problem of not finding a fellowship that they really feel comfortable at, because in the Torah crowd, you come up with a lot of judgment of different kinds. In the Christian crowd, people might be judging you because you believe in keeping the Sabbath. But in the Torah crowd, someone might be mad at you because you listen to the radio. Someone might be mad at you because you don't cover your hair or because you shave your beard. There are all kinds of little nitpicky, mote splinter, things happening in the Torah crowd that also make it very hard to find quality fellowship on that side of things too. So I would also encourage you to remember God puts us in the places where we're supposed to be, and it may not always be to find other believers who see the Bible exactly the same way as us.
Joseph didn't have other believers around him.
Yes, and
He's
he became
right, but he saved literally the known world at the time through God using him because he kept following Torah.
Yeah.
So he built family. He had children there.
Mhm.
I'm sure he taught them Torah.
Yeah.
So it took time, and eventually he was reunited with his actual Torah brother and his family. So it's great, but at the same time, he had to go through a season where he definitely probably felt isolated for sure.
Yeah.
In Egypt as a slave and then as a servant. And then, even though when he was rising in power, he's still dealing with everyone around him worshiping the Egyptian gods. We even see this in the book of Numbers with the Israelites, right? So the Benjaminites are going astray. And there's pockets of people trying to worship Yahweh, and there's lots of other pockets of people that just abandon Yahweh already, already by the time of like 200-300 years after the days of Joshua, and it's really sad. But that's it's just the way it happens. Even in the land when everyone's supposed to be obeying the Torah as the covenant commandments of God, descendants of those who did great and mighty things for God and brought them into the land and is routing out the enemies and all that kind of stuff. Even in the midst of that, there's still people that turned against him and caused the righteous to feel isolated within their homeland. It's sad, but this is why we yearn for the resurrection and we yearn for the kingdom come.
Exactly. Take
right?
heart, because even in our own communities, we're seeking that unity and perfection that will only come when Christ comes and implements it himself.
Stephanie Warner's asking about the New Jerusalem. Is the gates for the resurrected saints or for the nations? will bring their offerings and learn the Torah. It's for both, sisters. So the gates are the entryways in and out, where there'll be judgment happening as well as commerce. They'll be bringing forward their offerings and sacrifices to the priests who come out to the gates for the feast days, the Sabbaths, new moons, and just also for discussion, for Torah, for interaction, for teachings. And so it'll be both. Well, clearly, the resurrected saints who have inherited houses within inside the city will still get to leave the city. And I theorize it's what we see talking about, and I think it's Isaiah 60, where it talks about rebuilding the ancient cities that have been destroyed, from the day of the Lord. And I would imagine you want to grab a resurrected saint to go with you to go rebuild Cleveland, right?
Who's gonna want to rebuild?
Or maybe they'll just
Well,
burn it
Crazy
with
Bob's
fire.
Gonna be in the resurrection, so he might
Okay,
want to.
there you go. He might want to rebuild Cleveland and make it actually nice.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Make
we
it not Cleveland.
Cleveland's praying for the kingdom come, bro.
I
Whoa.
can say that because I'm from Northeast Ohio, so I'm allowed to trash it.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't build them the same way. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful new way.
Yeah.
But kind of makes more sense now when you hear about Christ saying, "Tell you if it faith mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, throw yourself into the sea, and it will do so."
Yeah.
Because during the millennial reign, you may, as a resurrected saint, you may need to go out and help clear massive amounts of rubbish and wreckage from the day of the Lord earthquake that happened, with all the cities and the nations were destroyed.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about the fact that stuff's not just going to disintegrate into the ground. Like there's going to be all kinds of.
Well, if I get to go clean up, I'll just burn everything and just smelt all of it, and then
That's still stuff
yeah.
to clean up. Like I didn't even think about that
Yeah.
aspect of it.
We'll see what happens. Seeing Lenny is asking, where can we find resources for accurate Bible history to be able to cite sources in discussion? Unfortunately, sister, this is where we just have to do our homework on different scholars who've tried to put together history of the early churches and all the people that were writers within the early church. And you're going to find some conflicting. You may not find conflicting timelines, but you'll find conflicting opinions on how things are perceived, and different edicts and canons were viewed. And depending on if you're looking from a Catholic or an Orthodox historian, it just depends on that. But I'm sure, there's YouTube channels out there that talk about it, from professors that go on there and start talking about church history and stuff like that. But of course, there's also books. So unfortunately, I don't have a specific link for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if you're talking about biblical history, like archaeology, like that kind of thing, I mean, there is a wealth of organizations, ministries out there that's their specialty. Answers in Genesis is a big one as far as archaeology, geology, that kind of stuff. There was a book that I showed last time we were on our live stream that I found really helpful when I first became a Christian, called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And that's like a collated list of just like archaeological finds and then correlating Bible verses that show, that this verifies, timelines in the Bible and stuff like that. So if you're talking about biblical archaeology, that's another one we couldn't necessarily narrow down for you, because there's actually a wealth of biblical archaeology information out there. So that would be another thing you would just have to Google and start favoriting, bookmarking things.
Guys, please try to refrain from arguing about the Trinity in the live chat today. Try to keep the peace, guys.
Can we ever get a break? Trinitarians, we love you. Can we ever get a break though?
Jeez.
Oh,
It's an obsession, man.
yes. Kingdom and Context is Torah observant.
Yeah, stand on scripture. We're Torah observant, bro. We do the commandments of God that apply to us.
Mm-hmm. That's
So-
why we're doing a Sabbath fellowship.
Yeah.
Because we're observing the Sabbath.
Victor Wolfwood's asking, I believe in agency and wondering when the angel Lord is in the Holy of Holies. Is it receiving the offering sacrifices as thought it were Yahweh, or just overseeing the process? Shalom. Remember, it's the glory of the Lord, which was a reference to the angel that's hovering above the mercy seat. So he's not sitting on that throne because that's Yahweh's seat, but he's hovering above it between the cherubim angel's wings. So this is where, he's overseeing the process basically.
And is he providing any kind of fire? I know that the sacrifice that happens with Gideon is really an interesting image of a sacrifice, because the angel holds out a staff and lights the offering on fire himself.
What'd that staff look like?
That's a good question.
I bet it was dope.
So, I've always wondered if the angel in the Holy of Holies or in the tabernacle, if he was involved in some sort of the fire aspect. Just a thought.
In what way are you talking about?
Like, does he provide, because there's burnt offerings that are going on, does he provide some sort of fire? I don't know. Or is he just in there like a manager overseeing? I mean, I think it's clear that he's not he represents the Lord, but it's not as if the offering is being given to the angel as if the angel is the Lord, right?
Let's read together here in Leviticus 9. Moses and Aaron then entered the tent of meeting. When they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar. When all the people saw it, well, we covered this in our kingdom portions many years ago, sweetie.
Well, maybe I'm just unlocking.
You're unlocking a memory. It's been a unique 9 or 10 months with this pregnancy, hasn't it? All the people saw it, they shouted for joy and fell face down.
Kingdom portions were like 5 years ago. I'd just like to make that clear.
So remember when Nadab and Abihu brought strange fire?
Yes.
And fire came out, destroyed them?
Yeah.
Where do you think that fire came from?
From the angel.
What did Yahweh warn them in Exodus 23? Do not test this angel. He will not pardon your sin.
Mercy on you, yeah.
Yeah. It's he was there he's the babysitter. He's got the belt. He turns off the stove if you need to. All right. Pharisaic Hotel is asking about dreams. He's asking, are they all dreams from Yah? If so, how do we learn to interpret them? If we're not, how are we supposed to distinguish them? I do not get into interpreting dreams, brother. Personally, I would pray for wisdom on that. I've had only 2 dreams in my life that I felt were like, well, I say 3 actually. I'm going to share. I'll share about 2, but I've had 3.
Share one too when he's done.
3 dreams that undeniably were from God. Undeniably. I don't want to give all the details and take a long time, but the first one was like, it was as if I was dead, waiting with a whole bunch of other people in some sort of auditorium. And there was no aisles in the seats. So it was just like, we're all like jammed in there. And in dreams, you know stuff, but you don't know exactly, how you got that information, but you know stuff. I knew that we were waiting for judgment, but I stood up in my seat and I said, why are we waiting for judgment? Like we're believers. I was like, let's start praying. So all these other believers started climbing over these seats to get to me. Then we started praying. And as we started to pray, like this big ball of light started to form within our prayer circle and then enveloped the whole room. And then we all like popped our heads up and we're like, come on, let's get out of here. So we like climbing over the seats and get to the back of the auditorium and go out the back doors to the ticket booths. And this is where we were like automatically filed into line into these ticket booths. And I was like 2nd or 3rd in line. And the lady at the ticket, behind the ticket counter booth, you were supposed to give her your ID and she would stamp, like approved or failed. And that determined if you're going to go to heaven or hell.
It's like straight out of a comic strip.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like a bad witnessing.
St. Peter.
It's a bad witnessing track that you find in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So basically, like as I'm standing there in line, I look down and I can see through my chest into my stomach, and I could see words in a sentence swirling around in my stomach, and it came out of my throat, and it was like something from the New Testament that came out of my throat to remind me that I'm saved. Christ has got me. Because I had doubt. I was doubting. I was like, what if I don't make it? Right. And so these words of life came up out of me to remind me that I'm, saved by his grace and his love, and that I'd have to trust in him. So then I was confident again. Right. And I stepped up there and I gave her my ID, and then she stamped it approved, and I just start running to the left down this bright hallway, this big, huge, bright hallway. And this lady like leans out the window and she's like, wait, you're going the wrong way. You got to go down the narrow hallway. So then I turn and look to the right, and there's like this little bitty narrow hallway, which isn't as brightly lit. And so I ran down that one. But then at the very end of it, it opened into this massive room that was like the firmament.
Wow.
So
He's
I
never told me this one before.
I knew that it was a room because I could see. I looked left and right, and I could see going into the distance, as far as I could see left and right, was the edges of the building I just came out of. Right. Not realizing that it was like like it was so big, I would now describe it like the New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Right. Because like it would extend it up into the sky and went as far as I could see. And I knew I was in an enclosure. And so I saw the clouds moving, and the clouds had like brightness inside of them, and they started moving back and forth, not like normal clouds. And I knew that I knew it was God's spirit in the dream, And so the clouds like swooped down, and, like a piece of brightness of the cloud came out and swooped by me and touched my shoulder. And it was even now retelling this, it's like the most peace and strength that I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was truly like, just, it's like God touched you. And I remember it just caused me to fall to my knees. And I was just praising God. It was great. So then I wake up, because it was a dream. I wake up and I'm on my knees. I'm not in my bed. I'm in a different part of the house. And with, on my knees with my hands up, just sobbing.
Wow.
It was wild. And it was like 5 a.m. And so I took me a while to realize like where I was, because I was in it's actually my father's house at the time. And I was in a different part of the house. It's like a 2-story house, and I was like a different part of the house, and I didn't know exactly where I was in the house because it was dark. It's 5 a.m. None of the lights were on. And so it took me a while for me to like, that's the part that freaked me out, was that, how when you are asleep and you wake up in the middle of the night, your eyes are already adjusted, your pupils are already adjusted to the darkness.
Yeah.
Mine weren't, because I was just in this extremely bright place with this brightness that just went by me and touched me. And it took a while for my eyes to come back and adjust to the darkness. And that's what let me, caused me to think like this wasn't a normal dream.
Yeah.
So then I found my way back to my bedroom, and just it's funny. I basically like just cried myself to sleep, thinking, like wherever that was, I want to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's kind of hard to know if a dream is from the Lord or not. Like that's something we've talked about. We couldn't really say. There are people who claim to have the gift of interpreting dreams, I mean, so as far as like talking to someone like that about your dreams, but we don't believe that all dreams come from God. I mean, there is some truth to some psychology in this world, and the understanding of the subconscious mind is not, it's not like witchcraft or anything. Like it makes sense that our subconscious mind, is active while we sleep, and there are things that play through our heads while we're sleeping. Some dreams, I think, come from the enemy. Sean has a lot of dreams that I always joke with him that I feel like the enemy really can only attack him in his sleep, because he's pretty much, he's got some pretty good self-control in terms of not walking in willful sin. There's very few things that he struggles with in his life. And the few that are there, I wouldn't say are sin anyways. So he has a lot of dreams that attack our marriage, where, I'll be a totally different person than I am in real life in his dreams. And it usually involves me in his dreams having some sort of affairs, or, just all kinds of, messed up stuff that would break up a marriage. So
I think a lot of it's just leftover trauma from our first marriage.
That too, because his subconscious mind, there's some things that he's never processed, from his past. So there's also a lot of that. But, I think that there's just as just as much of a likelihood that some of our dreams are also from the enemy. I would say that the one dream that I knew was from God, I didn't know until way in hindsight, because all the dreams I've ever had in my life have seemed pretty random and meaningless. And I've been one of those people that struggles to remember dreams. Like I might remember a dream right when I wake up from it, but then, I forget it. Well, there was a dream that I had probably about 6 months after I came to Christ. I was living by myself in a little camper that someone had donated to me, to get me out of this domestic violence shelter that I was living in. And woke up one day and I had a dream that, and here's the thing, I forgot about this dream until I saw it in my Facebook memories, because I wrote about it on Facebook that day, not knowing that it had any significance to my future. But I saw it a few years later in my memories, and that's when I realized that it was from God. Because the dream was, I was in a tractor trailer. I was in a big semi truck with a big trailer behind me that was full of Bibles. And I was going down this real windy mountain road, and there were no brakes on this tractor trailer. So every time I was coming to a curve in the road, I would start shouting, "Please, Lord, please, Lord, please, Lord." And the Lord would take control of the truck and stop on the brakes, and he would turn the truck for me. And I didn't know why I had this truck full of Bibles, but I felt like I absolutely was on a mission to get these Bibles down to the bottom of the mountain to get them to people. So that was basically the dream. I get about halfway down the mountain, and the Lord, again, I see a big parking lot coming up on the right-hand side, and I'm going, and there's a curve around it too, and I'm going, "Please, Lord, please, Lord." And he slows the truck down, and he pulls me into the parking lot and parks me in the parking lot. And then that's the end of my dream. And it didn't mean anything to me at that point in my life while I was a single, gal with a dog, never planning to be married, certainly never planning to be, with someone who's teaching the word to people and getting the Bible to people. So, sometimes
That's why we're all gas, no brakes, baby.
That's right. Well, the Lord's got the brakes. But that's, I did not realize that dream was from the Lord until I was living basically the fulfillment of it. So it's hard to say. We're not the experts on dreams, and some of them may be obvious, like you're pulled up by the hair into the spirit and shown the throne room of God, like some of the prophets in the Bible. I would say if that's happening, it's probably a dream from God. But yeah, it's kind of, I guess we don't have a solid answer for those questions.
That's why I said pray for wisdom.
Yeah, I would just pray for understanding. What's the term? We're going to rock it till the wheels fall off.
Singing Lenny, when I had that dream, I was 20 years old. Yeah, I remember opening my window and looking outside before I went back to bed just to make sure like it was dark outside, and
Yeah.
I was so upset. I was like, no, I want to go back.
You had a lot more to do.
Yazway is asking, the extra laws the Pharisees were teaching, were they written down or being taught orally? They're not laws. I mean, I know they would call them law, but it's not the law of God. It's just their man-made traditions, right? It's what Christ reprimanded them for. And during his day, they were still being taught orally for the most part, even though they claim they were received by Moses on Mount Sinai. Now, that's their claim from Judaism, from the Pharisees and the rabbis, but that's not true. And I don't think it was actually codified officially until around the 2nd century AD. And that's where the Talmud came from. where they took stuff like the Mishnah and other stuff and they put them in the Talmud.
Yeah, it's called the Oral Torah. But I think it would have, with the amount of extra rules they had, I would think it had to be written somewhere for people to remember these things. I think they call it Oral Torah because of what you're saying, that it was given orally on Mount Sinai, not written down in the tablets, I think is the rabbinic belief about the Torah. So the Oral Torah. So I think just the term might be a little deceiving, because there was so much stuff to remember. There were so many little, and there's even more today. So I would think it, just by virtue of, the fact that people couldn't memorize that kind of stuff, I would think it had to be written somewhere.
It's okay, Robert. We don't blame you for bringing in. We welcome everyone to watch the channel, regardless of their beliefs. May they be a blessing.
What's funny, brother, is that we actually went, when Sean first moved to Colorado, we went to a Messianic congregation, a Torah observant congregation down in Denver that I was attending for a while. And his first visit there was a worship song to the Trinity in a Hebraic Messianic congregation. So you're not going to get away from the Trinity just because you're not doing Sunday church. We learned that.
Yeah, we actually have friends that have been involved. They don't live around us, but they've both lived in Texas and Idaho, and they've tried to find Torah-based communities. And in both situations, the Trinity has caused strife and division in all of those Torah fellowships and broken up all those specifically the topic of the Trinity. No other topic they talked about in those fellowships. That was the one that consistently came up. 2 different people groups, 2 different states. But our friends are the family that lived in both those states and experienced this. It's just nothing but strife and division, man. It's a sickness.
Sean and I were aware that we could easily, start telling people the exact place we live and inviting people to move here and have our own, brick and mortar church. Like, we know that that's an option that we could do if we wanted to invite a community of Torah observant people to us. But Sean doesn't feel called to that kind of ministry. So that's just out of the question, period. But also, we're hesitant because of all of our other friends that we've watched do things like that and try to create little, isolated communities, and just how sticky all the situations have gotten. And
yeah, I'm not in a place in my life to be administering church governance.
Yeah, the leadership issues.
I feel called to totally different aspects of what God's called me to. So some people are called to that, sweetie, and may God bless you and grow you in that thing. May He find you a good place to plant and grow a church, right? But that's not us.
And I'm also not saying that every Torah observant community just ends up being a big, basket case full of drama and division. I'm not saying that, but it happens more than, we would like for it to happen. So
it happens in all churches too.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
That's already, been stated, that Christianity is a huge basket case of division and denominations. I mean, we know that. But all I'm saying is that the Torah community is not immune to that. Like, the Torah community has just as many issues with people not being able to cohabitate well together.
That's why we need the Father and the Son to come back and set the perfect doctrine straight, so everyone can be on the same understanding. Princess Elohim is asking, does Yah give good dreams to see the kingdom? Sister, I think He could. Yeah, I'm sure He could. I mean, I don't see why not. Now, just I don't know, just for anyone listening, since we were talking about dreams, we rarely talk about dreams because they can be so subjective.
Yeah.
People make such ado about them, they can be interpretive. So I would just say, as a word of warning, make sure that anything you experience or see in a dream that you might think has some sort of value or substance, make sure you're reading your Bible. Make sure that you check it with the Word. If you think that somebody's telling you something in a dream, if you think God is showing you a message to do this or that, make sure you check your Bible. We knew a guy about 1.5 years ago whom started watching our channel, and I'm not going to mention names. If you start to figure out who I'm talking about, don't say his name.
Okay.
So he then started to have dreams that God needed to go do this and that, and he, as a result, he just started randomly leaving his family to go explore where he thought God was telling him to go do stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then started breaking laws
Yeah.
in order to, like, putting himself in physical harm, not explaining to his family, like causing strife and division. Then it turned into his own teachings from his closet with the light dimly on. Yeah, weird, bro. It got super strange. And, all the while he's, I don't know if this guy's truly cross-checking what he thinks he's hearing or seeing with his actual Bible, right? And it got really awkward really fast.
Yeah, quit working,
And
abandoned his family.
yeah,
Police had to be sent out to find him. Like,
yeah. Now we don't know the guy. He just started like making himself known to us,
yeah.
saying that he watched our stuff from time to time. But then he quickly started strife with us to try to, tell me how I was wrong and all this list of things that we were teaching, and needed to submit to him, right? So it's
Yeah.
like he wasn't really watching our content. He's just, it's so funny how people do this, right? They'll come in, they'll be like, "Yeah, I've been a believer for like a year, and I was watching your channel, and you're wrong on everything." It cracks me up, man. It's hilarious.
Just, oh, I loved you guys. I was singing your praises, and then you said this one thing that I don't agree with, and now that's all I ever want to talk with you and argue with you about, because you are just so wrong on this one thing. There's all these other things I agree with you about, but you are so wrong on this. I'm going to be in your chat every time it's a topic, and I'm just going to be telling you how wrong you are. I'm going to say that Sean doesn't know the scriptures well enough, even though he's been studying them for almost 30 years.
Well, we get cases like that from time to time. We also get people that decide, for whatever reason, they don't like the fact that we believe Enoch is valid. So then they
just name the topic. They
decide they're going to run off to other channels and badmouth us for, because of that, even though the rest of what we teach they're on board with. And it's sad. It's sad. I
mean, I have a girl who lost all respect for me and our ministry because of my opinion on a certain breed of dogs. It could be anything these days, guys. If there's some sort of disagreement, all of a sudden our whole character and who we are as human beings is called into question because of one opinion we have that differs from theirs. It's crazy, honestly. Like, it's nuts. I had no idea Christians were this hateful towards each other, honestly. Like, there's no other word for it. Like, we are so hateful to each other in the body of Christ. We don't need the world to attack us. We don't need the world to persecute us. We don't need the world to tell us we're wrong, because, like, we're so busy doing it with each other. We're doing the world's work for them. It's crazy.
Paul, we don't have any plans for the Sukkot other than just observing Sukkot. We're not going to be hosting anything, and we're not going to be going to anything that someone's hosting. We'll be celebrating Sukkot here with our family here.
Our little family.
All right, so we have looks like Imogene is asking about Romans 15:8. She's like, what is Jesus Christ has become a servant to the circumcision? What does that mean? All right, so I'll put this on screen for you, Imogene. Imogen. I think I'm saying that name right.
I think it's Imogen.
Imogen. Let's start in verse 5. Now may the God who gives you endurance and encouragement grant you harmony with one another in Christ Jesus, so that with one mind and one voice you may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring glory to God. For I tell you that Christ has become a servant of the circumcised on behalf of God's truth, to confirm the promises made to the patriarchs. So in this particular, remember, in the book of Romans chapter 2, Paul already gives a breakdown of those who are circumcised. It only means anything if you're doing the law of God. So we'll go to Romans chapter 2. He says, circumcision has value if you observe the law. I'll just read this little portion here. Circumcision has value if you observe the law, but if you break the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Meaning, even if it was done to you as a baby on the 8th day, if you grow up living your life lawless and rejecting God and his commandments, your circumcision means nothing. Okay. But if a man who is not circumcised keeps the requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be regarded as if he's circumcised? Right. So remember, circumcision was an instruction that was a sign that you're in covenant with God after your heart was already repentant and circumcised to God. So there's two aspects here. The idea that is someone that is circumcised on their heart versus their outward body. And Paul's just trying to explain that your outward circumcision as a male, it only means anything if your heart is circumcised to God. Okay? That's the breakdown. So he goes on, like in verse 28, he says, a man who is a Jew not because he's outwardly, nor is circumcision only outward and physical. So he's explaining that it's a heart issue. It's inward. One is inwardly, a matter of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the written code. So in chapter 15, he's talking about unity in the faith. That is someone whose heart is circumcised to God. Bring glory to God with one voice. It's kind of like what we were talking about, where you bear with one another in forbearance and love, so you can create harmony with each other, that you endure to the end, and you're all together glorifying the Father, and then accepting one another just as Christ accepted you, because that brings glory to God the Father. Because Christ is a servant of those who are circumcised, right? On behalf of God's truth. Christ is our high priest who mediates and intercedes for us. He has the power to give us the gifts of the Spirit through the Holy Spirit as his position of high priest. And so he is a servant on behalf of those of us who have a circumcised heart to God. We're trying to have unity in the bond of the Spirit of peace to glorify God. So hopefully that makes sense. Great question. So hold the front and saying it was a dream that got her to read her Old Testament. No visuals, just heard the story of Noah. This is when I first turned to the faith. That's cool. All the words of God. Love in every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Thank you, Nasrim Nazarite. We appreciate the super chat. Thanks for the donation, brother. That's a blessing.
Yeah, another thing people like to argue about, demonize us for.
Bob, I don't know what you're asking about training. I don't know what you mean by that. You want to elaborate?
Guys, I got rebuked on our last live stream for peeling an orange on Shabbat. I did not prepare my orange the day before.
Yeah, it's misunderstanding of the commandment.
And just so you know, like, I wasn't just peeling the skin off. Like, you have to take off the actual like thin skin if you're going to give the orange to a baby. So I was like prepping an orange for my child. Yeah, this is what we deal with when humans are in charge. We struggle to get it right, man.
Bob is asking, do I know the difference between the Hebrew millet and the Jewish pariah?
It's two different kinds of circumcision.
Yeah, I don't know the medical practice and the difference in the circumcision.
Our stance is that neither is clearly explained in the scriptures. So it's not a worthy debate in our opinion. Go with what you're more comfortable with, as long as some skin is snipped off. That's
what's
what we
important.
think matters. So if it's a small amount of
Yeah.
skin or all the skin, just circumcise. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, we're like, hey, you know, you're keeping the covenant.
And this is what Shirako, this question as well, you know, with Romans 2 in mind, you still need to be circumcised to keep Passover. Yes, brother. We highly encourage folks, if you want to keep the Passover, that is the commandment. So why would we try to keep the commandment partially, is basically what I say. Because it is a part of trying to keep the commandment of Passover as a male, you have to be outwardly circumcised.
Yeah, we've always been very clear that there are certain aspects of the feast that we just can't keep in the dispersion. So there are certain things to the letter that we can't do right now. But we always encourage people, any commandment you can keep in the dispersion, you should. We would encourage you to. So circumcision is one of those things. You can be circumcised while you're in the dispersion. You can keep the Sabbath while you're in the dispersion. You can eat clean while you're in the dispersion. So, you know, that's what we would encourage. If we ever have a Passover gathering, we won't have someone at the door checking, you know, it's
between you and God.
You and God.
Yeah.
But our encouragement would always be to, yeah, of course, keep that part of the commandment if you're so able. So.
Singing Lenny is asking about, what does the scripture say is the reason why only the males were circumcised? Only the males were required any outward sign of covenant through circumcision. I don't think it tells us specifically why the males. I could infer from the rest of scripture that the men were supposed to be the head of the household, subjecting themselves to Christ, you know, as Christ loves the church. So I think it's that's like the hierarchical leadership there. So like if the father turns to the covenants, then typically his whole family would have also come into that same belief set, especially in other cultures in the olden days, right?
Mhm.
American culture is very fragmented, so it's not always the same today. But so therefore, the male, that would have been if he was willing to go through it as the patriarch of the family, as the example, then the subsequent sons would as well. But all of them were required to have their hearts circumcised to Yahweh. That's like we read Romans 2. That is the most important part, right? Because even if you're outwardly circumcised and your heart's lawless, bodily step means nothing. God looks at the heart. That's the most important. That doesn't negate the command for the outward circumcision, but that is your first priority: is get your heart right before God first, and then do all the things that he asks you to do outwardly as well.
Also, we don't have foreskin. Like
Yeah,
God didn't
but
create us with that.
Unfortunately, there's African tribes that do
I understand
that
that.
do
I
female
don't think they have
circumcision.
biblical
No, they
basis for
don't.
that,
There's
but
nothing in the Bible for it. The point is, I'm just saying, if she's asking from a position of why the men only, because of the patriarchal system, because of the way the fathers designed the hierarchy of authority in a family. It's probably the best and quickest answer, I suppose.
yeah, I was just adding too. Like
Yeah.
God gave them foreskins. You know, He didn't give us foreskins. I'm not gonna lie and like be like, "Oh, bummer for us," you know. Like at the same time, we also get to deal with childbirth, pregnancy. You know, there's some balance there in terms of who's gotta go through some physical pain for this life.
All right. Kira X9 is asking about 1 Enoch 69:12. The last line says, "The smiting which befalls through the noontide heat, the son of Tebaet." What does this mean, and what is the smiting referring to? Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to pull up. Just let me pull up Enoch real quick. Okay. All right. So oh yeah, that's right. Chapter 69 is the one that's the fragmented scrolls. It's the fragmented texts. And I'm not sure what version of Enoch you're reading because I don't see that in the version that I'm reading. Hmm. I'm familiar with the actual quote, but I'm trying to find the passage that it's in. Just not seeing it. But long story short, brother, I don't know what the smiting is of the noontide heat, other than just the wind patterns of the hotness of the day, and so I apologize. If you have an update, yeah, I'm not seeing it in the. You're saying it's in the last line of the R.H. Charles, but it's not. I'm looking through the entire chapter 69. Oh, there it is. It's in. Oh, you said verse 12, right? So it's about the angels that are teaching mankind destructive things, and it says, the fifth was named Skazdija. By the way, he's going to be in Days of Noah series. This is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smitings of spirits and demons, the smite of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away, the smiting of the soul, the bites of the serpent, the smiting which befalls through the noontide heat, the son of the serpent named Tabayet. So my best understanding is that basically he knew which serpent breed causes severe burning when you get bit. That's my best understanding of that particular passage. So I'd forgotten exactly what it said. Why are these pop-ups? What is going on here? All right. I do apologize. It is a very limited in scope passage. You know what I'm saying? So I have to be very forthright and say there's not a lot of explanation other than it's the part where it seems to be teaching that this rebellious angel was teaching mankind abortion, and something about the smiting of the soul, the bites of the serpent. So that's the immediate context. I don't have any other reference in any other scripture I've ever read that explains anything like this. So this is the only wording that I have to pull from to try to glean any context of what's being talked about. And so that's where I would say, if in this context these rebellious angels are teaching different aspects of things, because the occult deals with serpent venom all the time. Drinking of serpent venom, the application of poisons with serpent venom, and of course with poisons, if you get poisoned, it can be like a severe burning heat inside of you, right? It hurts. Same thing with the bite, a snake bite. So that could be what it's referring to. Be my best guess, brother. Donna Porter, I'm sorry about that. Donna and Jeff, may God lift up the Ennis family. We're sorry that they passed.
Destiny, we have a whole playlist on Galatians. If you just go to the playlist tab and scroll down, I think it's called Have You Read Galatians? So I don't know about, you don't have like a whole chapter by chapter series on Romans yet, right?
No.
Okay.
On
I know
Romans?
you've got lots of videos on Romans, but
we also got the study guide. Destiny, I think you're one of our level 3 joins. Make sure you send me your email on LiiightHouse. so that I can get you I'll get you the Roman study guide we've already completed.
Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay. Yeah, I'll send that to you after the show, okay? I just saw that. I just saw your reply.
No one wants to call in.
Not today, sweetie.
Like, I'm finally here for a call in. No one wants to call in. Levi's sleeping soundly.
Yeah, he's going on what, 2 hours? 2.5 hours?
Yeah. And he hasn't really moved much, so we might get another 30, 45 minutes. I'm kind of shocked.
Kira, it's Jubilees chapter 10 says Azazel, also called Satan. And it's called Mastema in the book of Jubilees as well. He's got multiple names, obviously. We should know that. And so he's the one that's given charge over 1/10 of the unclean spirits. The other 90% were sent into the earth, locked away. You did tell Destiny to check out our Galatians playlist.
Yeah.
Not just the one that Eternal Light. Thank you, Matthias, for dropping that. Not just that one, but just go to our playlist on YouTube for Galatians, and it's got a whole bunch of videos inside there. Okay.
Yeah. Is that my phone?
No, I just turned off the other browser. And we're finishing up the Hebrew series soon. About to have chapter 9 ready.
Please address.
Hey there, Geo Truth. He's asking, please address the main reason Trinity believers ignore many scriptures that states Yahushua is the begotten son of Yahuwah. Well, there is, this wasn't filmed on our channel, but I was in the live chat of another channel that's a Trinitarian channel recently, like Wednesday, I think. You guys, you'll have no idea how many other channels I interact with that never gets filmed. That I'm in their live chat asking them questions, just ruining their day. But I asked them this very question as far as like, why does the creed say that, like the Athanasian Creed says that Christ, the Son of God, is the only begotten Son. But it says the Father's unbegotten. Because we see in the scriptures, the use of that word begotten is all the genealogies. He begat this person, he begat that person. But they don't use it like that.
No, like all Trinitarian arguments, they just redefine the word.
Yeah, because it's from philosophy, and that's what philosophers do. Is they say, is a tree really a tree? Is begotten really begotten?
Does begotten really mean?
Does it really mean begotten? What does is really mean is? In the famous words of the philosopher Bill Clinton. So it's so funny that, like, this in the creed itself, it'll say that Christ is the Almighty, and the Father is the Almighty, and the Holy Spirit is the Almighty. But then it also says the Son is the only begotten of all things in all of creation and all of life, that he's the only begotten. It never calls him uncreated. It just says that in the Athanasian Creed, it says he's the only begotten. But then you look up the word begotten and you say, oh, well, it means it's uniquely created.
Yeah.
But when you bring that to them, they're like, no, he's not created. He's not created. No. That's not what it means. That's not what the word begotten means. It means the eternal generation. So then when you go and look up the word eternal generation, and you realize scholars can't figure out exactly what it means, and they argue over exactly what it means, they think it means this communication line between the Father and the Son that has always perpetually been there. So now they've taken a word that is used for genealogical descent and they've redefined it to mean consubstantiation, which is unspoken communication of the essence between the Father and the Son perpetually, forever, in all existence. So, like, all of it is nonsense. All of it is just wordplay, just not just blah, just words that philosophers came up with to try to defend their belief, because they believe they wanted the Son to be as equal to the Father in all power and authority. They wanted the Son to be equal in eternity. They don't want the Almighty to be Almighty. They want it to be a shared coessence with the Spirit and the Son. This is why it's called vain philosophy. They want what they want, and they will reword, argue, and kill people to get what they want. And they've done that in the past, right? Now, I'm not saying modern day Trinitarians are murderous, even though
Their spirit, their attitudes, certainly. I mean, they absolutely murder you with their words.
even though just yesterday in Professor Solberg's chat, there's people in the comments in the chat saying John should be thrown in the lake of fire.
Yeah.
So even though we see murderous statements coming out of their mouths, and this is just a unique concept of how they defend this philosophy at all costs, even to doing murder to the language itself.
Yeah, imagine being so, I'll go get him. Imagine being so dedicated to a doctrine within your Christianity that you're quicker to condemn another person in the faith to the lake of fire over that doctrine than you are child traffickers, like people who actually are wicked, and all of us would like to see either saved, and if they're not saved, we'd like to see them get their judgment in the lake of fire for all the evil that they've wrought upon the world. Like, you don't hear Trinitarians like focusing on condemning like actual evil in this world. They want to condemn other Christians who don't agree with the Trinity doctrine.
Yeah.
Like there's a real disconnect there that is hard to figure out. Sean and I try to refrain from saying it's a whole different spirit, but sometimes it comes across like certainly not the spirit of Christ. I mean, it's not a loving spirit.
No.
They say it's loving, like they're trying to save you from that lake of fire by condemning you to that lake of fire over the Trinity that they can't fully explain to you, but expect you to fully accept. So there's a problem there. There's a problem there. I'm gonna go get Levi.
All right, thank you, sweetie.
Let him come say hi. Gotta stop his nap timer. 2 hours and 30 minutes. Woo-hoo.
So now you guys are talking about begotten in the live chat. Yeah, it is the word monogenes. You can look it up. It is used also in John 3:16, and you can look it up. It's calls itself a one of a kind, one of its class, and it's from the root word of offspring. Where did he come forth from? Of course, if you use that terminology, that's when it will go off the rails. You can't say it came forth. They say he's not two gods, even though he's two separate persons. They share one essence of being because they've always eternally existed together. Because how dare you say one of them actually was brought forth from the other one? How dare you say the Almighty is actually Almighty? That's the part that just blows my mind. I would love to, brother. I reached out to Don Preston a long time ago, and he didn't come on. So you got to remember, guys, I've reached out to so many people to interview them on my channel, to bring them on to talk about things. They never respond, or they just say no. That's what we were just talking about. There's some people, maybe as we grow and they start to view us as an actual threat, they'll start to come on, but some of them just want to act like you don't exist. That's the vibe that we get, is because I'm not saying because they're intimidated. I'm saying from the fact that like they've already dismissed us outright because they think, oh, this guy's not a Trinitarian or whatever. You know, this guy's a futurist, and you know, I don't know. Um, just depending on the disposition of the particular pet doctrine they subscribe to. Um, Many times they'll dismiss you so badly, so quickly that they don't ever want to come on your show and talk to you because they their audience will roast them alive for interacting with you. The only thing they can get away with is making a video about you to critique you, but to actually talk to you civilly and carry on in peace with you, their audience will come after them because, and oftentimes they haven't trained their audience in discipleship. They haven't trained their audience with expectations of how to behave, and they let their audience run wild with all types of eating itself. They eat each other over their words and how they condemn each other and backbite each other and just wait for you to say the wrong thing and they'll jump on you because they're not being encouraged to walk in peace and a spirit of love. So this is why you may have heard me at the end of the broadcast yesterday. I said directly to Solberg, you may want to talk to your audience. There's some wicked people saying some wicked things in your audience. We try to remove that stuff as fast as possible, put people on timeout, discipline people to make sure they know you can't get away with that stuff in our live chat. We're not here for that. Just because you disagree with the minister's approach or their doctrine doesn't mean you get to slander them, doesn't mean you get to talk ill of them or verbally abuse them, to be a reviler, as we're told for 1 Corinthians and other places. I mean, those are the behaviors that says will not inherit the kingdom of God. We're not going to allow that in our chat. So this is a part of having a standard. What's up, big boy? How you doing?
His eye looks really.
Hey there. Oh my goodness.
His eye's looking weird today.
You see yourself on camera? That's you. That's baby Levi.
Who's there?
That's baby Levi.
Is that Levi? Is that you? Look, that's you.
He's excited.
Say hi. Hi, everyone.
It's a big guy. So there's a lot to it. We have invited a lot of people to talk with us, and I will, just because I disagree with them, I'll still talk with them peacefully. And they just don't want to come on. That's just the way it is. Yeah, Jonah, I've already spoken with Sam Shimon. He's just as bad as Jay Dyer. There's no reason. We would have to have a moderated discussion with those gentlemen. Those gentlemen are not able to control themselves whenever they get serious refutation. They just try to talk over you, commandeer, and we'd have to have moderated discussion, unfortunately, with those gentlemen. Such ridiculously bad fruit that comes out of those two.
Did you drop it?
I already had a debate with Anthony Rogers. Look it up, check it out. It's on our debates playlist. And also, I just want to warn you guys, we're not here to argue about the Trinity in the chat, okay? Let's try to walk in peace. Thinking, Lenny, I tried to reach out to Answers in Genesis a couple years ago. Then we had someone that we knew on Facebook that they work with Answers in Genesis, and they basically told me that I could try, but they highly doubt they would ever respond to me. And they know the people at Answers in Genesis. So just again, I can't stress enough, guys. You don't have any clue how nasty this world is behind the scenes with some of these folks that they may put on a good face when the camera comes on, but like trying to lovingly, as Christ-like brothers and sisters in Christ, interact behind the scenes. It's bad, man. It's a world full of pride and egos. And you got a ministry that's taking in hundreds of millions of dollars to build a museum, an art museum. They don't want to be questioned on biblical cosmology. Like they would have to, for them to change course on their thoughts, the amount of effort, the amount of they would lose all their sponsors, all their donors, they would lose all their business, all the people they employ, they would have to shut down immediately. It's just a huge issue.
Their whole worldview, is they would definitely have to be retracting a lot of textbooks. They would be changing lots of curriculum. Of course, we would love for that to be done, in honor of the truth. But I don't think people understand how hard it is for some people who are so embedded into ministries like that to have the courage to break away and teach something different.
Hayden, I'm not familiar with Dustin Amos or his positions.
Can you please scroll back down just a little bit?
Sure.
Get that one. So we've talked about head coverings before. There is no clear command to cover your head in the Torah for women to cover their head. But it does seem to be, at the very least, a cultural practice that's well known from biblical times. So for me, it's more of a personal conviction. If you feel closer to the Lord when your head is covered, then I would definitely encourage you to cover your head. I would also say there's lots of benefits in terms of modesty, and how men treat you in public when your hair is covered. I noticed a stark difference in that. Now that I'm married and I'm pretty much always out with my spiritual covering, I don't have that issue because I have my husband with me all the time. But definitely as a single woman, it was a big help for me to cover my hair. And that was just, that was kind of like the final part, because I was already moving into more modest dress in general. But yeah, there's something about covering your head that does change how specifically men will treat you. And I would encourage women to explore that, but I can't say that it's a strict command. So just follow your conviction on that.
Hey, Amani, we have the call-in link in the live chat at the top. If you want to call in.
Yeah. Boing. Boing. There's a book. This is your favorite book.
Nazarim, yeah, I noticed this happens a lot it's like the modern lingo on YouTube now. When people are arguing, they'll think that someone's winning the argument, so they use verbiage like this. But that's very different than actually attacking the person, versus saying, like, if anyone was in our live chat saying that Solberg was unsaved or a heretic or intentionally lying, or I'm saying, like, if they were just throwing random accusations and slander at him, we try to remove them, because Solberg can't defend himself to those people, right? That's where I personally can look at him and say, hey, sir, are you being genuine right now? Are you trolling me? Are you, like, better than this? I can personally address him because he can respond to me, right? He can explain himself. But when you just get a bunch of random unfettered slander and accusations and demonization, we remove that from the chat as fast as possible. In fact, if you ever watch us consistently, you'll hear me say it often as we start the show, for the moderators to put people on timeout, try not to ban them, just so that they can get their act together and maybe come back the next day and act right. There's even some people here in the chat today that I've unbanned, because I go through, every day of atonement, I go through and unban people. try to give them another chance, right? So see if they can act right, this year. All right, looks like we got a caller real quick. We had Hayden.
Hey,
How
Sean.
you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. You got some serious light from heaven coming on your face there.
Sorry about that.
Raining
See if
down.
I can turn it down.
See if I can get this to.
There we go.
Get this to work.
Oh, okay.
How you doing today? Did you have a
Good.
question?
Yeah, so my first question was, I've been seeing some stuff online, and I wanted to ask you if you have seen anything similar, that the cross was a Catholic made-up symbol, and that Yahusha was actually nailed to a tree.
I've never seen documentation or history on that. I personally, I don't think that it's an actual tree. I don't think there was a tree on the edge of Golgotha that he was hung on. Because and then what are we saying? There's extra branches they hung the other two thieves on next to him on both sides. Is that the idea?
I'm not sure. I've been seeing that floating around, and I was wondering if
Yeah.
there's any legitimacy to it.
Otherwise, I think it's just a semantic concept where they're calling a stake, which is made of wood. They would also just
Yeah.
refer to it as a tree, depending on which historian speaking, which translation you're reading from. But it's I don't think it's not an ankh, right? It's not an Egyptian cross.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's just a cross beam and they had like an actual back pillar, and he just carried his cross beam to the actual, and then of course Simon had to help him because he was falling down. That's still going to refer to it as a cross by loose definition, but ultimately I don't think I haven't heard a lot of definitive answers on that.
Okay.
I came across a pretty well researched post on Facebook a few years ago from someone who looked into the topic, and even the secular history confirms that the actual instrument that was used for that form of execution by the Romans was a T-shaped cross. So from secular history, we know that was the common form of execution at the time done by the Romans. So I don't see any reason to think that it wasn't the same that they always did to all the other people they consider criminals for Yeshua. I think this is personally, I think this is another one of those topics that's just kind of a trap in the Torah community, where it's just another way to demonize another aspect of Christianity and say it's a Tammuz tea and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Even though English didn't exist at the time of anyone named Tammuz, and who knows if that's how it was actually pronounced. So I always encourage people with topics like that, just don't get too hyper focused on it. I've found the secular history reveals that it seems to be the cross that we know of, but some people make a bigger deal out of it than I would.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for clearing that up. And I just wanted to encourage you, if you ever have some time, Sean, to look into Dustin Nemos. He's been doing a lot of work with Austin Whitsitt.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it'd be great if you guys had a back and forth. And it seems like he'd be easy to get a hold of too.
Okay. Yeah. I'll check him out. I guess he's got a YouTube channel.
No. He has a website called the Serapeum. It's spelled SERAPUMN. But you'll be able to see him on Austin's videos. But they're not on YouTube. They're on his Rockfin and other places because they keep getting taken off.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
All right then.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, you
Hey,
guys.
no problem, brother. No problem. Thanks for calling in. Bless you. Have a good day.
Bless you guys. Shalom.
Well, Amani, we invited you. We tried to set something up right now in real time. So.
Is it Vlaco? Did I say that right?
Yes, that's me. I don't know if you can hear me right.
Yes, I can hear you well.
It's good. Oh, I'm happy to hear that. I saw something like really yellow all over my video. I don't know how it's coming across.
It's okay. There is a yellow. You've got like
it's like yellow filter.
A yellow filter, but it's okay. I can still see you.
Oh, okay. That's going to be good enough.
Everyone else waiting in the studio, you must have your camera turned on. I will not let you on without your camera turned on.
I just
Michael, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I had a quick question for you because basically I'm kind of a little bit confused on like what do you believe on the state of the dead? Because I noticed that I believe in the soul sleep when people die, they're just not in any sort of cognitive state where they can think or do anything.
Lucko, can you hear us?
Yeah.
I think your microphone is hitting your shirt or something. There's a lot of static.
A lot of that's maybe too loud. Let me just try and bring it down a little bit. Should just use these other ones together. A few. Can you hear me now?
You're kind of faint. It's hard to hear, and there's a lot of
faint.
static happening.
A lot of static. I don't know. Is it better now?
Your microphone by chance?
The mic is right in front of me. It's like 20 centimeters from my face, so I don't think I can improve it. How is it now?
Okay. It went away for now, so yeah.
Okay.
We can try again.
Yeah, I'll redo that. So the question was on the state of the dead, because I've noticed that you believe that the dead are in some kind of state where they can think, communicate, something like that, and that they are, I believe you said that they are somewhere, and I believe in soul sleep, like the way the Adventists believe that when people die.
You don't believe in Sheol and the righteous and the unrighteous side compartments of Sheol awaiting the resurrection?
Yeah, I don't believe that right now. I believe when the dead are just dead. But I know about the verses that you're talking about, so I don't know really where to put that. From what you're saying, it seems like you believe that literally, right?
Yeah. My question would be, Christ is teaching from it, so why would you think I would not take it seriously?
Teaching from what? Can you expound on that a little bit?
In Luke 16, he teaches that the souls after death, they go to an unrighteous side or a righteous side of Sheol to await resurrection.
Luke 16, I would have to look that up. I don't know if we have time for that. Can you quote that or pull it up quickly?
Yeah, have you ever read Luke 16?
Yes, I have. I just don't have it fresh in my mind right now.
Okay. So that is 1 second. I gotta. So Luke 16, it talks about the rich man and Lazarus both died, and they're in Hades, which is the Greek word for Sheol.
Oh yeah. The story about Lazarus. Yes, of course I know about that. When people who talk or expound on the belief that the dead are like really dead and gone, they of course explain that as a parable. And from the other
do you think
verse,
that Christ's parables taught us wrong afterlife theology?
well, if you put it like that it's a wrong afterlife theology, and of course it makes no sense. From what I understood, like when a parable is introducing, it says something that is impossible. For example, when he talks about like the kingdom of heaven is like what do you say it in English, like dough. That's obviously not literal, and then you know that it's a parable because he said something that it's impossible. So if you had
I couldn't hear you. Could you say that again? The kingdom of heaven is like what?
Dough, but it's
like
not.
dough, is it like dough or like
Okay.
leaven?
So
I
yeah,
don't know which word is in
but
in
the
English.
idea of the dough and the leaven in the dough, that it works its way through the dough, that's a real concept. So it's a metaphor explaining how the goodness of the kingdom can work through the world, and will be brought to the world, and the goodness of the kingdom will affect all nations.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about how you figure out it's a parable, because he's saying something that's physically and literally impossible. So you figure out, so that's a parable because he's saying the kingdom of heaven is like dough.
No, I'm saying that the
impossible.
comparison is not impossible. The yeast working through dough is a common thing in baking.
No, I wasn't saying that it wasn't possible in that sense. I'm saying how are you figuring out that a parable is starting? Because he says something that is literally impossible. So your mind goes, oh, it's a parable. I have to think, figuratively. And for somebody who believes that a soul is sleeping, that people are like dead, gone, there are no thoughts, nothing. for if Jews were in believing that, then when Jesus would start talking about dead people talking, to their mind, that would be, that's a parable because dead people are dead. So this is a parable. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, the history of the Israelites is they understood what Sheol was. They understood that Sheol was a place under the earth where souls went to wait resurrection.
Okay, people who believe in soul sleep, they believe that Sheol is just simply the grave, and
Right.
the soul, as in the Hebrew, the nefesh. The way I've been taught, nefesh is the sum of the body and the spirit. So you have the physical, the body, plus the spirit equals the nefesh. So when the soul dies, the body and the spirit separate, and the nefesh dies, and then there is nothing
You
to
think the
put.
soul dies?
Yes.
So what if the soul dies? Okay, so you mean like you're still equating your version of death, meaning just the soul goes to sleep, waits to be made alive again.
Yes. The soul would be like the entire being of the human, meaning the body or the dirt plus the spirit. They're just those two components. When they are added together, the human becomes alive. And basically, when they are separated, the soul, which is that sum, ceases to exist, ceases to be.
So what do you think
that's
happened
how-
to Christ when he died on the cross? Where did his soul? What happened with his soul?
Well, I believe he was dead in that sense, truly gone, dead, with no mental capabilities in that sense.
You don't think he went to the heart of the earth, which is what they called Sheol?
I do, in this sense that I've just said. His body was buried, so his body was in the heart of the earth. He was dead.
It's not the heart of the earth, though. The
What is
grave, the
that?
grave isn't described as the heart of the earth in Hebrew idioms.
Okay.
Just let you know.
If you can expound a little bit of that, I don't
Yeah, it
know
was
what.
called Sheol, brother. It was the compartment for the soul to be waiting resurrection. This is what the Hebrews taught. We even got this all the way back to Psalm 49. You got it in Genesis as well. Obviously, the book of First Enoch goes into great depth in chapter 22 to explain what Sheol is and why it was created.
Where did you say that was? I didn't hear this last part.
First
You
Enoch
said
22, Psalm 49, 7 through 15,
First Enoch
chapter 22.
22 and Psalm 49. Okay, I'll have to look that up. So if you can just, I don't want to interrupt you all the time. If you can just a little bit expound on, I can't hear you now very well. If you can just a little bit expound on what you believe on the dead, where they are, what death really is, and how Christ died. I would be really loving to hear that.
Well, I believe that the scriptures teaches us the dead go to Sheol, which is a compartment in the earth, the heart of the earth, to await resurrection. There's different compartments in Sheol for the righteous and the unrighteous, as Jesus explains in his parable. And then when they're resurrected, this is why Paul talks about in Acts 24 that there's a resurrection of the righteous and the wicked. So the righteous are going to be resurrected and glorified, given an immortal body. The wicked, they're going to be resurrected back to a normal body, which can be destroyed in the lake of fire, as Christ tells us in Matthew 10:28. Both body and soul. That's the only time the soul is destroyed, is in the lake of fire.
That's exactly how I believe it as well.
Yeah.
I just don't. For example, you have in the Old Testament where it says that those who die, they go into silence, and that their thoughts perish. I can't remember the exact verse, but it's this pretty.
Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 6 through 9 talks about the activity in the land of the living versus when you die and how all that activity ceases.
Ecclesiastes 9, 6 through 9.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up because I didn't remember that about that it talks about the activity of the living. I remember that it spoke about those who die and they go into the grave, that their thoughts perish. So that's how I remember it. I would have to freshen up on that a little bit. I should have prepared a little bit for this question. It goes a little bit technical and into the detail. But basically, this is like the only belief where I kind of diverged from what you are teaching, and practically in everything else we are like 99% on the same page.
Hey, that's okay, brother. That's all right. It's keep, challenge, test everything I say. You don't have to believe everything. Just keep, studying, and I'll keep studying, and we'll keep comparing notes. We can still, just, it doesn't matter if we agree on every single detail.
No, definitely. When I watch these debates, I really don't see this spirit of Christians just trying to come to a better understanding. It's so many times it just degrades into some kind of bickering and fighting, and I don't think it brings any sort of fruit. When we kind of work together and study and help each other to learn the Word of God, I think that's what God appreciates and wants for us.
Yes. Amen. That's true, brother. Where are you
Yeah.
from?
From Croatia.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Is it middle of the night for you right there?
It's not that late. It's 10 p.m.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you watching us, man.
Yeah. I love watching you, especially on the Sabbath. I just wanted to ask one more question. I don't remember if I ever saw you talking about it. Do you believe that the day starts with the sunrise or with the sunset?
I believe that the calendar day starts at nighttime, after the evening, after the sun goes down. The calendar day starts in the nighttime, but the daytime, as Christ tells us, is there's 12 hours in the day. That, of course, is from 6 in the morning to 6 at night, is the general idea of the daytime.
Yeah, that I remember that because I disagree with that. I believe the day starts at sunrise, especially there. I think that's Matthew, I think 28:1, when it says that it was very early in the morning, it was still dark, and it was dawning towards the next day.
Right.
So you could understand that very easily
Right.
as the day starting at sunrise.
Yeah, I think there's a common use of the term day and night in Scripture, but there's also a calendar use of when you count days and how you count days according to a 24-hour time period.
Okay, I've never heard about that concept. But when you
Yeah,
read
that's how you
Genesis,
count the days to the feasts, or you would count the days between Sabbaths.
can you repeat that? I didn't catch that very well.
Yeah, being able to count the 24-hour calendar day is how you determine when to count towards the feast days, and also when to count between the Sabbath days.
Well, that's exactly the reason why I brought the topic up, because I count the days differently, of course, because I believe it's more correct. Specifically, when you talk about the, what do you call it, when the lamb is sacrificed in the spring, what is the name? I forgot it now in English.
The Passover?
The Passover, exactly. So the Passover, I believe it's on the 14th, right?
The 14th is when they slaughter it, but they don't start eating the actual meal that's been cooked until it becomes nighttime on the 15th. It's the very first meal of the feast, the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. So you
Exactly.
prepare the Passover on the 14th. You start eating it at the nighttime on the 15th.
Exactly. And I think I found that some verses that talk that is incorrect, that the entire feast has to be held on the 14th. And that's why I also believe that that's in sync with the day starting at sunrise. I didn't prepare that, obviously, either. I would have to pull up the verses. But I believe that there are verses that show that the entire feast has to be held on the 14th. Both the killing, the slaughtering, and the eating of the lamb, which goes in favor of this idea that the day starts.
We built our understanding from Exodus 12. So I would just encourage studying, deeper the Exodus 12 as far as eating it at the night. Study the word between the fixed evenings, as far as what evening time is, and then of course how they came out after they ate the meal at midnight on the 15th. They came out of Egypt. So that helps us with a good, strong timeline from Exodus 12 as far as slaughtering the animal, eating it when it's dark, and then they had their shoes on ready to escape Egypt at midnight.
Yeah,
brother, I really appreciate you calling. We're running out of time with our son here, getting a little anxious.
Thank you.
We needed to get some food, and we got to end the broadcast. But I really appreciate you calling in. There was some great questions.
Thank you for your time, and God bless you.
Yeah, bless you too. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. For everyone else waiting in the studio, I'm sorry we weren't able to get to you today. Please try again. And we're running out of time with little Levi. He's ready to get going.
Hey, I would just like to say that, we've always been pretty clear about our Sabbath fellowships, that we don't necessarily come on to fellowship and argue with people about our disagreements. So it's one thing to like say you disagree with something while you're in our chat, whatever, but like insisting that we argue with you, to us, it's arguing. It's not just a respectful disagreement and I want you to help me understand your position. If you're coming in to just bulldoze about how wrong you think we are, yeah, we might not be in the mood to do that on the Sabbath. We already have Trinitarians coming into our Sabbath chats every week to fight with us about that. And so then other people want to come in and argue about other things they disagree with us on. And then they want to shame us for choosing not to pick that fight today. It's Sabbath. Like, we come on to Sabbath fellowship to fellowship with you guys, to do Q&As,
okay.
So
please just take a moment.
I would like to express my feelings.
I know you do.
Like,
I know. Just relax.
It's not.
It's
not. People, you may think that you're coming across as respectful, but you're really not. So we don't have to address every single disagreement that people have with us. And if we did, we'd never get around to actually talking about all the things we agree on. We'd never get around to preaching the gospel of the kingdom, because there's all kinds of stuff people disagree with us on every day, and they insist we should talk to them about it. So sorry, we don't have time for every single disagreement, every single debate that people want to have with us. And sometimes on Shabbat, we would rather not kindle fires. We'd rather talk about things that don't cause quarrels and strife and disagreements. So just take it for what you will.
Last question.
Sure my words mean nothing to the person I'm talking to, but
last question for today. David Fellini in the LiiightHouse chat. He's asking about the two books we've mentioned that we should read and understand. So that we can better understand Hebrews, and that is Leviticus and Numbers. So, and someone else had asked earlier in the live chat about us doing a special. Vlatko, we weren't talking to you, brother.
no, yeah, it's not you.
That's
brother.
why I was trying to settle you down a little bit, baby. It's not coming across to the wrong people, but
No, there's
I know who
people
you're
in the
talking. I
chat
know who you're talking
demanding
to.
that we answer
I know.
their disagreements.
I know it's okay,
Like-
sweetie.
like
We're about to end the
this is a
stream.
Sabbath where we should be at peace with each other.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, sweetie. We had to. So anyway, yeah, I'm considering your request to do a special show for Leviticus and Numbers. In fact, I've even been considering just trying to do like a special, just like a special live stream for people. And maybe we can incorporate Discord, because you can have a whole bunch of people in there at once. And maybe we can do something that's just, kind of like a step-by-step walkthrough. That might help folks. All right. Just got to find time. There's a lot I want to do. We just got to find time. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. And I hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Love you
Say bye-bye.
guys.
Say bye. Bye, Levi. Say bye-bye.